Hi, I'm Rod Bryant. Welcome to Yeshiva Perchei Shoshanim's Noahide Mitzvah and Lifestyle course. I hope that your studies have been fruitful and you've been enjoying them. As we have always said, to remind you each class, take time to ask questions. And if you have any questions that are pertaining to this class, go into the chat section, ask your question, and I'll return your answer as soon as I possibly can. We are now in the third installment of Noahide Identity, dealing with Ger Toshav. We're actually going to be talking about the idea of a Ger Toshav in the postmodern era. Having clarified the identity of a Ger Toshav, we now turn our attention to Noahide identity. We will soon see how the two relate to each other. Now, the term Ben Noach, or B'nai Noah, plural, for sons of Noah, occurs in the Talmud about 50 times, and in Rashi as well. However, it is used primarily in its simple meaning, a child of Noah, as a generic term for all non-Jews. It is possible that the term Ben Noach and Noahide implies more. Is it? Well, yes. Is there actually a positive identity called Noahide? There are two very difficult paragraphs that we're going to deal with, and I hope that you can follow, and this might require us to break it down into detail during a shmooze session on Sunday evenings, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on Zoom. You'll be receiving an email update on this information. The answer to this question really depends upon two frightfully difficult paragraphs in Maimonides' Mishnah Torah, this code of Torah law. Now, I must say that these two paragraphs of Torah law, or three, are often used by detractors of anybody that does not believe in the Noahide laws, i.e. non-Jews who do not embrace Noahide laws, as a precursor to bring anti-Semitic thoughts up on this, or impose anti-Semitic thoughts. And today we hope to clarify some of those things. Here in the two paragraphs, in full, from the text, the Mishnah Torah, Maimonides' Mishnah Torah, I want you to note, if you look at the paper in front of you, the bracketed letters have been inserted for ease of reference. When you see the thing that looks like two S's stacked together, that is a paragraph. And you're going to see a bracketed letter, A, B, C, D, E, F, that's going to give you a breakdown of the sentences within that paragraph that we're going to examine. Please take time to make notes. And as I said, this could be a bit of a brain twister for our yeshiva students who have more training in the Talmud. It may not present any issue to you at all. Just be patient with us who are trying to get through it smoothly. The number 10, the 10th paragraph, Moshe, our teacher, gave over the Torah and the mitzvot only to the Jewish people. As it is written, it is an inheritance to the congregation of Yaakov. Deuteronomy 33, verse 4. And all who wish to convert from among the nations, quote, as you are, so shall the convert be before the Lord. Numbers 15:50. However, for those who do not wish to accept the Torah and the mitzvot, we do not force them to do so. That's A. That's the A part of that paragraph. The B part of that paragraph. And so too, it was commanded to Moses by the Almighty to force the peoples of the world to accept the commandments charged to the children of Noah. Wow. Let's read that again. And so it was commanded to Moses by the Almighty to force the people of the world to accept the commandments charged to the children of Noah. Okay, now we can see something that causes us to scratch our heads. C, all who do not accept them will be executed. One who accepts them is called a Ger Toshav. Okay, now before you start sweating, let's go through and examine some more. This is paragraph 11. All who accept the Shavamot mitzvot, are careful to observe them, are called the pious peoples of the world. The next sentence or line, E, and they have a share in the world to come. This is provided that one accepts and observes them because they are commanded to him by the Holy One in his Torah, and G, reaffirmed by Moshe, In the next sentence, H, however, one who observes them based on intellectual reason alone is neither called a ger toshav nor a pious person of the world. Rather, he is just a wise one of the Gentiles. Let's look at the problem. Using the reference letters inserted in the text, let's go through the difficulties point by point. Let's look at sentence A in paragraph 10. Moshe, our teacher, gave over the Torah and mitzvahs only to the Jewish people, as is written, it is an inheritance to the congregation of Jacob. Deuteronomy 33:4. And who wish to convert from among the nations, as you are, so shall the convert be before the Lord. Numbers 15:15. However, for those who do not wish to accept the Torah mitzvot, we do not force them to do so. This section is fairly innocuous, stating simply that the Torah is unique possession of the Jewish people, yet all who want to convert and become Jewish may voluntarily do so. Additionally, no Gentile may be coerced or converting. Here's the issue. Let's look at the next sentence. And so, too, it was commanded to Moses by the Almighty to force the people of the world to accept the commandments charged to the children of Noah. Our paragraphs are capstones in the chapter dealing with the conquest of the land of Israel. For example, in paragraph 1 of this chapter states, when the army's troops enter the territory of the Gentiles, conquering them and taking them captive, immediately preceding our selection in paragraph 9, reads, similarly, a treaty cannot be made with a city which desires to accept a peaceful settlement until they deny idol worship and destroy their places of idol worship and accept the 7 universal laws commanded to Noah's descendants. Any Gentile who does not accept these commandments must be executed as if under our authority. Now, paragraph 10 and 11, therefore are clarifying the requirements of these conquered people to accept the Noahide laws. Yet, if we are speaking about conquest of Israel, then why does Maimonides use the phrase to force the people of the world? Maimonides is not speaking only about the Gentile inhabitants of Israel, but about the Gentiles of the world. All who do not accept them shall be executed. One who accepts them is called a ger toshav. This requirement for execution is difficult to understand. The most obvious problem is that there is no apparent source for this. There has never been an established source for this to this point. Furthermore, if we understand the B sentence in paragraph 10 as requiring forced acceptance of Noahide laws upon the peoples of the world, then C in that sentence of paragraph 10 would require execution of everyone who refuses, would even mandate the execution of those who fulfill the Noahide laws, yet who never accepted them formally before Beis Din. This yields a startling conclusion. We're going to look at the sentence that's labeled H under paragraph 11. However, one who observes them based on intellectual reason alone is neither called a ger toshav nor a pious people of the world. He is rather of the wise ones of the Gentiles. We see that person who observes the Noahide laws based on reason alone is not someone who has accepted these laws before Beis Din. There are plenty of people in the postmodern era that would fit within this category. They follow pretty much the Sheva Mitzvot because it just makes sense to them, not because the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob requires that of the descendants of Noah and as well the Jewish people. Therefore, according to B and C of paragraph 10, such a wise one of the Gentiles would also be executed for failing to accept the Noahide laws. Well, the net result of this simple reading of Maimonides is to erase the identity of the Bnei Noach and Noahide entirely. According to such readings, the only available option is a Gentile is to convert to Judaism and become a ger toshav or be executed. There have been some rogue elements within the Jewish world that, or when I say rogue, I'm talking about very remotely rogue elements that would say there is no Noahide and you should convert, and they will quote this text to use this. We're attempting in this class to clarify this and debunk those who would say there is no Noahide and you shouldn't become a Noahide. It's not supported by the Mishnah, and therefore you should convert. Let's look at paragraph 11. Only creates more problems for us. Let's look at sentence that's labeled D in paragraph 11. All that accept the Sheva Mitzvot are careful to observe them are called the pious people of the world. The classification of a pious person of the world has no clear Talmudic precedent. This is only true, however, of our modern editions of the Talmud. For example, in Sanhedrin 110b discusses the reward earned by the children of the wicked, of the idolaters. Rashi, commenting on this passage, similarly refers to the merit of the children of righteous of the idolater. In both instances, Mesoras Hashas indicates that earlier versions of the text, both in the Talmud and Rashi, read the children of the nations of the world and the pious people of the world, respectively. It is likely that our modern text is a product of an offended church censor. Let me explain. During the period of time in which the Roman Catholic Church was attempting to destroy ancient text and to censor text in Europe, there have been Talmudic texts that were forced to be changed or censored by church censors. And if you want to know more information, it's very easy to research and do some searching on the internet, and you can find this out. What is odd, though, is that the tying of the status of a pious person to the acceptance of the Noahide laws is this. Or let's look at bracket E, the sentence E. It says, and they have a share in the world to come. This passage presents little that is surprising. The Talmud has already demonstrated that Gentiles receive a reward for fulfilling the mitzvahs. However, we again have the questions, why is the receiving of eternal reward in the world to come dependent upon the status of a pious person? F and G, the sentences labeled F and G in paragraph 11, this is provided that one accepts and observes them because they are commanded to him by the Holy One, blessed be he, in his Torah, and reaffirmed by Moses, or reaffirmed by Beis Din, etc., etc. Maimonides requires acceptance of the Noahide laws based upon the Sinaitic revelation, rejecting the validity of acceptance based on the original Noahidic covenant. However, acceptance based on the Sinaitic revelation, a Gentile does not receive reward in the world to come for fulfilling the Noahide obligations. However, one who observes them based on the intellectual reason alone, neither called a ger toshav nor a pious person. He is rather just a wise one of the Gentiles. Look, Maimonides informs us that not only is acceptance based on the Noahidic covenant insufficient, but even fulfillment of the Noahide laws based on reason or logic is unacceptable. Let me explain that again. Just for one to say, well, the laws that were given to Noah, we follow them because we're children of Noah. Or they just make sense. They're logical. This is really an unacceptable reason to follow those if you want to receive the full merit in the world to come. One who observed the Noahide laws based upon reason does not merit being called a pious person, but a wise person. He's not stupid. He's not an evil person, but he's not fully going to receive the reward he should and could. Furthermore, one who observes his laws based upon what appears precluded from receiving any reward. Maimonides only grants reward to one who accepts the laws based in the belief that it came from Sinai. And check the sentence D and E in the paragraphs above. Now, let's make sense of paragraph 10 and 11. The issue in paragraph 10 of forcing acceptance and executions we deal with later. The immediate issue, the question of Noahide identity, requires unraveling of paragraph 11 or verse 11. All who accept the Sheva Mitzvot are careful to observe them are called the pious people of the world. Bracketed in E in that next paragraph, and they shall have a share in the world to come. And the next sentence, this is provided that one accepts and observes them because they are commanded to him by the Holy One in his Torah. And next sentence, affirmed by Moses. And next sentence, however, one who observes them based on intellectual reasons alone is neither called a ger toshav nor a pious person of the nations. He is rather of a wise one of the Gentiles. Now, Rabbi Yosef Karo, author of the Shulchan Aruch, notes that there is no apparent textual source for this paragraph. Writing, it appears to me that our master made this statement as a result of his own deduction. Despite this lack, Rabbi Caro agrees with Maimonides' conclusion in paragraph 11. Without a textual source, scholars have been left to speculate as to Maimonides' reasoning. However, the Sefer Toldot Adam records a curious story about Rabbi Shlomo Zalman of Zolotzin, brother of famed Rabbi Chaim of Zolotzin. A visiting Sephardic rabbi asked Rabbi Zalman to explain several difficult sections of Maimonides' writings. When asked about the source of our paragraph 11, the author tells us that the Rabbi Zalman offered up a following midrash. Rabbi said, "I have heard that the pious of the nations of the world have share in the world to come. However, we have not been taught so with regard to the wise men of the nations of the world. Who is a pious man from the world among the nations of the world? He who accepts the Sheva mitzvot, or 7 commandments, because they are written in Torah? A wise man from among the nations of the world, however, is one who observes them based on his own reason." Sefer Toldot Adam, however, does not identify this midrash. In fact, since his quotation of it, no one has ever succeeded again in locating it. In the 20th century, however, the manuscript of a lost midrash, Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer, was discovered and published. Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer includes the following passage. The Chesedi Umos Olam, or the pious Gentile of the nations, are only called pious when they fulfill the 7 mitzvahs, or 7 commandments, or 7 categories, and to the children of Noah in all of their detail. This is provided they do so, saying, "We fulfill them because our father Noah commanded us by the mouth of the Mighty One." So if they do so, then they merit the world to come just as a Jew. This is so that even though they do not keep Shabbos and festivals, for or after all, they are not commanded in them, but if they observe them, the Sheva mitzvot, saying, "We heard them from so-and-so," and if they observe them in accordance with their own reason, then they receive their reward only in this world. The text is the closest parallel in any ancient rabbinic text in our to Maimonides in paragraph 10. Viewed against the midrash quoted in Sefer Toldot Adam, it appears that Sefer Toldot Adam midrash is rather a corruption or poorly recalled version of this Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer. Is the Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer's Maimonides source for paragraph 10? It is certainly possible. After all, we know that Maimonides was familiar with it. However, there are 2 obvious differences between Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer and that of Maimonides in paragraph 10. The first is that the Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer requires acceptance of the Noahide laws. Because of this, that means that they had to accept the Noahide laws because of Noah and not because of Sinai. The second is that the Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer mentions reward in this world for those who keep Noahide laws according to their own reason. Maimonides makes no statements or differentiation. However, it is not the Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer as was relied upon, whether or not Mishnah Rebbe Eliezer was relied upon Maimonides. It is nevertheless attested to the tradition validating Maimonides' concept. However, it is also possible that Maimonides' reason is entirely based upon famous Talmudic passage in Bava Kama 38a. When we read this text, we realize that Torah law has its details and intricacies like any law of nations. This is primarily the reason why that we have a Supreme Court in which they can go and have cases presented to them, which helps to differentiate what the meaning of the particular laws are, and are they constitutional, or do they meet the original standard? Well, as we very well know, even though the Jewish people and the great sages of Judaism have carefully preserved the text of the Torah from the time of Sinai forward, there have been periods of time in which Torah was attempted to be destroyed, and great text of the Talmud, etc., should be burnt in piles in Europe, and yet they have been able to sustain a record. Sometimes to the non-Jew, it appears that they are wrestling over text that doesn't make sense. Let's just try to figure this out logically. You have to realize that the Jewish people is a nation. It's a people. It's a culture. The Torah, the first 5 books of Moses, is the law or the constitution that governs that nation. The reason why the Jewish people still exist today is because they have preserved that Torah. The reason why the Jewish people understand and know how to practice their life and experience their lifestyle is because they have preserved that Torah. Now, the postmodern era, we bring in the righteous non-Jew. And in these texts, you realize how they have to wrestle with these texts to find out what is the place of the pious non-Jew? What is the place of a person who is a Noahide? And what is the place of a person who is a non-Jew who follow the mitzvot, not because of any other reason besides they make sense, not because they're given from Hashem on Torah and given to Moshe, but just simply because they make sense. Now we understand why they wrestle with the laws like this. The job of the Noahide is to listen and to study carefully. It's to ask plenty of questions, and we know that asking questions is very important. Now ask students to consider themselves fortunate to be able to sit down and have a very intimate look into these texts. You also, I would say, should be challenged to ask plenty of questions. And of course, I don't consider myself the final authority of these texts. There are pashtuns that are final authority on this text, and I would ask the hard questions. So this concludes this class. I'll see you in next class.